Hello and welcome everyone. Lovely to be here on this spring equinox. Well, spring equinox for me, where I am in the Northern Hemisphere. For some of you, maybe an autumn equinox. And it's a magical time of year. So we're very happy to be here and sharing with you some exciting things and some powerful things today. I'll just wait around a little bit until some of you are still arriving. So just give a minute or so. And while I'm waiting, I'll introduce my lovely friends here. We've got Tanmayo. Some of you may probably know Tanmayo, you may not, but she is an amazing woman, goddess of a woman, with incredible natural wisdom. She's not feeling too well today, and I did encourage her to just stay in bed, but she's been really stalwart and she's here with us. So she may not say so much, but her presence will be radiating. You're muted in case you want to say anything, Tanmayo.
Oh, thank you, Richard. A lovely introduction. I think that I might be feeling a bit of the power of the equinox also today, and all these great solar flares and CMEs and just everything that's happening on the planet. I thought it's better to be with friends, whether I'm feeling great or not. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And then we have Amy Wharton. Amy's, you'll hear from her later in the call. She's over in Hawaii, and Tanmayo's in Australia. I'm in the UK. Sally also is in the UK, but Amy's a great friend of the Gene Keys and particularly works very deeply with these teachings of Seven Seals. So it would be lovely to hear from her. And Sally Middleton. Sally's been instrumental in helping bring together this Seven Seals course in its new form, and works alongside me and Gene Keys. And we kind of co-produce lots of these courses, these online courses, and really bring them to fruition. And really, so a big thank you to you, Sally. It's lovely that you're here. Sally's also got we have a few issues tonight that Sally may have a slightly dodgy internet, and Amy living on Hawaii may have thunderstorms and kind of, volcanic ash or whatever excitement comes. So we'll see who's left standing by the end. And so before, while you're all still arriving, I'll do a thank you as well. I want to also thank, while I'm here, before I'll do a little introductory prayer in a moment, but I want to also thank Lena's here. Lena's our tech host. Nice to see you, Lena. And so thank you for hosting this call. And I also want to thank Elijah, who couldn't be here, Elijah Parker, who has done most of all of the technological stuff behind the amazing course, and the courses that you're going to see tonight. And so he's just tirelessly applying his genius to these things, and also the whole media team, who are also part of Gene Keys, who have been incredibly helpful bringing these things together. So I'll do a little prayer just to get us started. There's lots of prayers in these teachings, and they're quite powerful. And today, I picked this one called the Prayer of Transition. They're not very long, so it's nice to just do them together, really. So I'll leave a little pause after each line, and then just enough so that you can repeat either in your mind or out loud if you wish. This is called the Prayer of Transition, quite appropriate for these times. Deep Spirit of the eternal waters, Lord and Lady of life and death, we offer homage to you in this time of intense change. We bow to the great mystery of this unfolding And breathe a deep sigh, yielding at last to the sweet inevitability of grace. May we enter the gate with our hearts open. May we softly release the past and open fully into the glory of your light. May all who are caught up in this change find the easy path to their highest good. Great and ancient grandmother of the earth, we convey ourselves into your gentle arms. Great bright Lord of the bluing sky, we release our soul to your boundless winds. May all beings be blessed. May all beings be blessed. As together we journey out of the darkness. And like the leaping salmon, may each of us return to the exquisite and inextinguishable flame of our source. Amen. So these prayers are really powerful. I'll say a few more things about them as we go on. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share a little slideshow with you and talk you through some of these the amazing things that have teachings that have come out recently, an update of our 7 Sacred Seals course, which is an incredible teaching. And, it's very hard to just explain it just like that. So I'm going to dive into some of the depths behind it and give you a taste and a sense of some of the depth, the layers that there are to it, because it's a very mysterious and mystical teaching. It's the mystery school aspect of the Gene Keys. And as many of you may know, the Gene Keys are actually quite practical because they give us these profiles, and then through our profile we can learn about ourselves and our purpose and our relationships and our how to prosper in life and all those kind of things, which are very physical and real and applicable to our lives. And then there's also things like the 7 Seals, and they're less applicable on the surface. They're more about our inner life, and they're more about our connection to higher consciousness and to other dimensions. And the 7 Seals is one of those. So it requires a different kind of holding and a different way of working. And so it has lots of practices and things in it. And so I'm going to just give you a little slideshow. Give me a moment while I share my screen. Right, hopefully you can see this. See that? So, as I said, the 7 Seals, I mean, some of you may want to know where they came from or where they come from. And I'm not sure I can answer that easily. They come from a higher dimension, and they come from the field of light of which we are a part. In some sense, they are connected to higher evolutions. And so they're a mystical teaching. They're also, they've been spoken of before in the Bible, for example, in the book of Revelations. There's this whole revelation about this mystery of the 7 Seals and the opening of the seals. And it has to do with the apocalypse and pretty wild imagery and allegory. And so this is the same teaching as that, but it's demystified in a way and made practical. It's also, it draws together strands from many different pantheons of teachings. You'll see in a minute. I'll give you some examples of that. So, it has a lot of, so its core essence is it's about grace. And grace is a really mysterious term that means many things. It has many layers to it. But essentially, it's about healing our wounds in life. And there are individual wounds and there are collective wounds. We call these shadows in the gene keys. And so each of the seals, there's 7 of them, has this relationship to one of these wounds. So here is just, I'm jumping right in the deep end here. And you can see at the top of that table, the 7th seal, it has to do with the world wound itself. And it's the seal of grace itself. But then there are layers of wounding that are held in our DNA, in the fabric of our being. And this, when I call them wounding, it's really about our suffering. And you'll see that this suffering is imprinted in every single human being. It's in us individually, whether you have that, you can see there the wound of separation or guilt or rejection or shame or denial or repression. All these are kind of aspects that underpin human suffering. And it sounds kind of heavy, but then, human suffering is kind of heavy. And the 7 seals are about directly approaching our own suffering and transforming that suffering through the power of grace. And this is not a thing that you do lightly or that you can do. It's not a course that you kind of just take and then it's done. It's a long, unwinding and healing that takes, years for most of us. But the 7 seals give us really beautiful pathways to help us with these different wounds. So you can see how the seal of truth relates to the separation. Forgiveness is about guilt. Epiphany is about rejection. Love heals the wound of shame. Omniscience, the wound of denial. And I'm not going to go into all these because when you go into the seals, they kind of open up and you understand them in more depth. What I did want to touch here is the collective shadows, because they're kind of interesting, because when it's all very well, if you look at the first seal, which is about divine will, the wound of repression is basically the wound of fear, so it's essentially fear that is the core wound in all humans, and fear of death. And when you take that same fear and you look at it collectively or racially, what you see is it's the fear of invasion. It's the terror of something else coming in and taking your freedom or taking that which you love. And you'll see that the wound of denial is on the collective level is about violation and rage and anger. That's what it brings up. And so it brings out aggression in humans. And the wound of shame is about trying to escape. It's about panic or migration and movement. And these wounds kind of are connected to each other as well. So it sounds kind of intense, but they're kind of part of the nature of human suffering. You then have hatred and you have colonization. So where you have invasion, you also have colonization. Where you have hatred, you have terror, you have hatred, and then you have delusion and tyranny and annihilation, the 6th wound, which is in some respects the most kind of removed, is about annihilation, where one species or one race seeks to annihilate another, and that requires the wound of indifference in order to be able to commit those kind of atrocities. And that's the basic wound of separation. So these, this is heavy stuff. This is dense stuff. And we carry in our DNA all these patterns. They're ancestral inside us. And so all our ancestors have gone through these things, these wars, these invasions, these, terrors, this rage, these, all of this. It's everywhere. It's there in our everyday lives through our relationships, played out on a small local scale. And it's played out cosmically, it's played out in the, racially, and it's played out in the whole of nature itself. So the 7 seals are really not afraid of going into these patternings of suffering. And they take us deeper and deeper into it. We're feeling them anyway in our lives. We see them around us anyway, especially today. And so it's very topical work. And, the way in which it works is we begin to use the power of the seals to invoke hang on, I've got stuck here for some reason. There we go. Come back. To invoke these higher powers. And the seventh seal is always the feminine seal, and this is really a feminine transmission, it's feminine teaching. So you'll see there at the top, here you can look at some of the bodhisattvas from Buddhism and the tantric, Christian saints from the Christian pantheon, and then angels or archangels. There's always been a tradition of 7 saints, 7 archangels, 7 bodhisattvas. The number 7 is a mystical number. The 7 stars, that also is part of the teachings of the 7 seals, 7 rays of light. That's another part that we'll touch on a little bit. So what you see here is you see examples of different religions or affiliations that have tuned into the same energetic signature or essence and hold these frequencies that relate to each other. So when you get to know each seal, which you will through the program, you'll get to feel its essence. The 3rd seal always has this compassion at its heart, and so you see St. Francis with his soft, gentle heart and his life and all of that. And then you see the Archangel Raphael, the Archangel of healing traditionally, and the compassion of the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas. And so it gives us this multidimensional language. And these are just some, you can add layers of more from your own culture and you'll begin to see these same patterns woven everywhere. So these are light signatures of our multidimensional self, these higher beings in a way, or ascended ones. And the central core of this teaching is called the Corpus Christi. It's about the body of Christ, the rainbow body, we call it, the mysteries of the rainbow body. See, the rainbow is made up of these 7 rays. And we know this, many of us, from the 7 chakras. And the 7 seals have these relationship to 7 subtle bodies. The 1st seal relates to the physical. The 2nd is called the astral, which is our emotional nature. The 3rd is our mental body. And these are seen as actual separate bodies. They're dimensional fields around us. The 4th seal is about the causal, which is one of the higher bodies, the higher Trinity that relates to the plane of pure archetypes. And that's a plane that lies beyond our normal comprehension. And then the Buddhic body relates to the 5th seal, which is the body of ecstasy, you could say. The Atmic is like the divine mind of silence. And then finally the monadic. The monadic is the kind of the multidimensional field that contains and holds them all, because it relates to the 7th seal. And the 7th seal is always the one that holds and opens and contains them all, and which is why it relates to the feminine, to the great feminine bodhisattvas like Mother Mary and the Taras and those feminine presences that you see in many different mystical traditions. So there are links here between the bodies as well, because they're sort of logarithmic, or they're kind of they're like algorithms in a way. The physical body, our physical body, has a higher component in a higher level, which is the causal body, just as the astral has a higher aspect. And in what you'll see here, and I don't want to get too deep in this, but when you go into the seals, you learn about these things, and they're really interesting, and it gives you a completely different view of reality. So you have these 2 trinities. One is upward facing, the Trinity, the current of evolution. And then you have the upper Trinity, the causal Buddhic Atmic. This is like that kind of stream of involution, which is where the spirit and the lower one is matter and the upper one is spirit. And they're trying to find each other. So the spirit is where we've fallen from. Like when we disappear into the other world at the point of death, we kind of go back and access those higher bodies, those higher aspects of our nature. And so you have this essential split. And in the middle is us, the event horizon of a human being, a human life, the eternal present, you might say. And the magic of working with the 7 seals is it starts to bring these 2 together. And here you get to see the seal of Solomon, which is this traditional mystical shape where suddenly everything comes together, and you get to see how these different forces of involution is the spirit coming down into the form. It's in a way the future seeking the past, and evolution is the past seeking the future. And we're right in the middle. We're that present, eternal present moment where it's constant, life is a constant cresting wave. So you get to see through the seven seals this incredible, it's the reason for existence in a way. You get to see, oh, wow, there is a kind of higher plan to it all. There's these forces of incarnation and excarnation. So we come into the form from the spirit, and then we go out of the form back into the spirit. And these different forces of involution and evolution, and what in the seven seals we call it invocation and evocation. Two words that I'll talk about in a moment. And so the current, the impulse, and the process. So it's really describing our journey in this multidimensional rainbow body, this universe. And the seven seals is here really for that purpose, to take us into these, extraordinary levels of consciousness. And so what I wanted to do is going to ask Sally, hopefully if our internet kind of holds out, to share some of the course so you can take a look at it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, hopefully. If I can get my cursor to do that. Oh, there's the rainbow body. For some reason, I've lost control of my cursor. That's worked. There we go. Technical hilarities.
Technical hitch. Thank you, Richard. Tanmayo, was there anything you wanted to add at this point before I dive into the course?
Do jump in.
Yeah, I was just mindful of that. I thought, yeah.
No, I thought you were on such a fabulous roll there, Richard. That was wonderful. I watched with awe that it went straight into the wounds, and I feel like there is so much that could be spoken about extra there, which is we don't need to do now. When we look at the things like annihilation and tyranny, and forget that we are doing that to ourselves very, very often through our inner judgments, through our conditioning, through our comparisons, through all kinds of things. And we see again and again how we do this self-annihilation, that we can really be in deep self-sabotage. And that's the healing power of the seven sacred seals for me. And also and how it works beautifully with Venus, of course, but very much, I feel like one of the greatest tyrannies for me has been what has happened in religion. I know that's maybe not the truth for everyone. I can only speak the truth for me. I feel like there has been such a separation from the divine that has been created in many, many places. And there is such a deep longing to return to that place. And for many around the world, they've lost that connection. So I feel that the seals brings us back to that connection in a way that covers any tradition that you may belong to in any place around the world, and also is complementary to any tradition without there being any need for division or separation. So when I saw that chart, that's what came up for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, just to reiterate that those collective wounds that we see in the world around us are rooted in our individual wounds. So you're absolutely spot on. The tyranny is inside us. It's in our homes. It's in our hearts. It's the mind controlling the heart. It's the left brain controlling the right brain. It's it's everything. It's all that, the anger, the rage, the violation. It's all in microcosm in our emotional lives, in the way our mind works. And, so what we're seeing on the world stage is simply a reflection of what's latent in humans. and individuals. So when we heal that at an individual level, we're actually impacting the whole in ways that we can't possibly fathom. So even like a small victory in your relationships, a small little victory inside yourself where you overcome a negative pattern, that you've had for years, for example, has a huge impact in the collective matrix of humanity. That's where we have power over the whole, and more than you can possibly really fathom. You might think, oh, this isn't going to make any difference, but each of those little prayers that we say, in the quietness of our soul, they go way out into the cosmos. They ripple into the whole matrix of humanity, and they land and they stay there. So it's kind of powerful to understand these things. Sally, do you want to show us a little bit the course if your internet's behaving itself?
I will do, and I know you have the course too. So if my internet doesn't work, I'll hand over.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's share the screen. Okay. Can you see this clearly?
Not yet.
Okay.
Now we do.
Now you do. Okay. So there may be a little delay. If it's too slow, Richard, you can let me know. So there are many of you here this evening, I think over 1,100 viewing. So welcome everybody. And we are mindful that there may be newcomers to the Gene Keys here this evening. And so what I'm demonstrating here really is our sort of learning platform where we host all of our courses. So for most of you, it will probably be very familiar if you've been involved in our deep dives. But for those of you that haven't, this is kind of how it presents itself. So what we've done is we've taken the transmission and we've taken the essence of the book that Richard originally wrote. And we've also taken inspiration from a live course of the 7 Sacred Seals that was presented in 2015. And we've kind of brought it all together here in a step-by-step process. And of course, there are 7 main sections. And, we begin with an introductory section where you'll, for example, see an opening blessing. So what happens is you click and there's normally a little bit of text in each part of the course in the modules. And often that you'll find a video that you simply click on that will open up, and this is where Richard will be sharing the transmission. So you then also have a little place where you can take notes. So you have this on each page, so you can collect your notes as you move through the course. So then we can take a step back so I'm not going to take us through every section, but you can see here we have a course overview. And then we have instructions how you can navigate the course. And also there's a lovely section where we have like the introduction to the 7 Sacred Seals. So here you'll find the Corpus Christi teachings from the book that take you through. So there are areas where you will read more than watch video, for example.
Yeah. And you can read the book itself. You can read the book in its original form as well if you don't want to read online.
Yeah, so everything from the book is inside the course. Thank you, Tanmayo, my assistant over here. Everything in the book is inside the course, but of course the course contains a lot more. It has all the meditations and also live invocation.
It's also audio. It's also an audio, isn't it? So
yeah, there's an audio. There are audio sections. So Richard really here has been speaking a little bit this evening about the 7 rays. He's been sharing some of this content with us, and then what we have is this most beautiful meditation that was recorded live. About that, Richard.
Yeah, that was we made that a special.
It was the one at the end of the seals.
Very, very powerful, and it has the most beautiful music to it. I mean, a lot of these things you're seeing here, like, by the way, that you can also download a lot of this offline, so you can listen to it and enjoy it without being on screen and live. Yeah, but there's a lot in here, and it is all, there's also audios of me reading the book. So you can, there's a lot of options for how you can take this in.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't mention, do you want to talk about the invocations?
Yeah. And so then really everything up until this point is preparation for actually moving into the 7 seals themselves. So I think, Richard, it's probably nice if you share a little bit here. I can show perhaps an example, of one of them, if I click on it, and then maybe you can speak about it.
Yeah, so the invocations, there's 7 invocations. They're, about a 20-minute long process, 25 minutes sometimes, and they're set to the most incredible haunting music, each one very different, because each seal is very different, so each invocation is very different. I might read you a little one in a minute at the end of one, so that you get a sense of it. But they're, so you can read them, you can listen to them, you can speak them, doesn't matter how you do it. Many people get them on their phones and then just listen to them in sequence or listen to them over time, because they're kind of so beautifully mastered with the music. They really kind of go in deeply into your sort of being, and the words are poetic but really powerful. And in the invocation, we invoke that seal, we invoke its ray of light, we invoke the archangel, we invoke all the different aspects of the wounding and the energies called siddhis, which are the highest aspects of our nature that heal that wound. And we open up that seal and we invite that energy to come into our body and into our being. And if we do that over a period of time, even if you do it once, you'll begin to get the feeling. And at the end of this course, you're going to have an opportunity. We're giving you some free, beautiful free gifts. So you're going to be able to have a sense of, one of these invocations, the 7th invocation, you'll be able to listen to it and really get what I'm talking about. But each one of them has its own particular resonance and frequency and power. So, yeah. Okay. And then do you want to share on a bit more, Sal?
Yeah, I'll share on a bit more. So as Richard mentioned here, we have all the 7 seals, and so they take some time to work through, and you can take as long as it takes, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years. And then there's a final blessing. But whilst you're working through these seals, we have a section called spiritual deepening over here. So I'm just going to, bring us back to here. So for example, in spiritual deepening, we have the rainbow body resources. So there's a whole range of practices and blessings and meditations that you can actually dive into, that you can build your daily practice with, and you can ring the changes really, and you can bring in different ones in different times. So for example, if we go under daily practices, you will see we have a whole range. So we have, for example, the contemplation of the triple flame. This is one of my favorites actually, and I often set my timer through my week. So every 3 hours, my timer will go off, and then I can take 3 minutes to have some contemplation time. So even if I'm driving, for example, and my alarm is going off on my phone, I can either choose to pull over and just have a few minutes of pause, or I can just mindfully just bring my thoughts, into a much more still place, and just come inside and just bring my awareness back inside. And I also have a friend, we all, whenever we have holiday together, even if we're out walking, we will set the alarm, and no matter where we are and what we're doing, every 3 hours, we will stop for our 3 minutes. And we often extend it to 5 minutes actually, because we love it so much. So, you can actually, you can have fun with it. You can bring other people into the process with you. So that's one of my favorites, but there are many others. We have the blessings of the 5 elements. We have a gorgeous sunrise meditation. Maybe Richard, you might like to share about this, because I know it's one of your favorites.
Well, yeah, I won't go into it because I don't want to spend too much time on these, but it does require that you wake up early. And some of these practices, we really recommend you do them in the morning and in the evening, particularly many of them. And as the one Sally said, you want to keep that going throughout your day. And that's why there's lots of kind of subtle ways of keeping the awareness of these higher powers, these higher energies coming into our lives. So it then becomes a part of our daily presence and our daily life, rather than, not being integrated fully into our lives. So that's really what it's about. As you can see there, Sally's also, there's loads and loads of prayers that are for different things: prayers of thanks, prayers for illness, prayers for, prayers of the archangels, prayers for divine manifestation, transition, which is great, the one I read earlier, birth, so anyway, lots and lots of incredible resources. I mean, so many resources that you'll be like, oh my God, this is just like a feast.
But it's lovely because over a period of years, because I've been working with them over 7 years myself, and so it's lovely to be able to come to different prayers, different blessings at different times. And then finally, there's the downloads and recommendations section. So here we have the section where you can download all the course audios, for example. So they're all available here for you. So although you'll find them in their individual sections, if you come here, you can download them all at once and have them on your mobile devices. So this is another one of Elijah's genius moments of making it easy for us to access everything. So there's plenty there to explore. But one other, Richard, what would you like to do at this point? Go past to Amy?
Let's just pass to Amy and because a lot of this is about connecting in with community and supporting each other. And Amy's been running a big circle around the Seven Seals for some time. I mean, these teachings have been around now for some time, for at least 7 years since they came out. So a lot of us are kind of very deep in them, and we're really offering support to each other. So Amy, over to you. Tell us what what your group is up to.
Thank you all. Just a humble initiating agent of grace, and it's really lovely to be here. I live in this land of rainbows, and literally every license plate, every tag has a little rainbow on it. So this notion of the rainbow bridge, of the rainbow body, if that harmonic resonates with you, then I really warmly welcome and invite you to explore this mystery. It's so deep and so rich, and it's been just kind of radically rebirthing me for the last 7 years. So I'm really celebrating the relaunch and the expansion of the wisdom, which feels like this just most exquisite pearl of the whole Gene Keys transmission. And it's so precious, a treasure, really a panacea for our time, in this way that it's ineffable. It's like you can only really know it by doing it and receiving it and making space for it to start to marinate in those subtle streams of light. I think in its universality and digestibility, it's so incredibly gentle and so powerful. And I just want to really acknowledge the purity and this kind of path that we get to co-create as these modern mystics, where these wisdom streams cross-pollinate and converge in this beautiful synthesis. So just really deep bows to all who've been a part of that. And this group of us ambassadors began journeying with it more intentionally as a collective almost 2 years ago, I think. And so out of that has arisen, every month on the 22nd, we host this open call, this kind of collective communion with grace. And we cycle through from 7 to 1. And there's more information about that, or more, you can watch the replay of a call we had in November. That page Sally was sharing, the genekeys.com/grace. And just welcome you to join us on the 22nd at 2200 UTC each month, just to kind of tune our collective body, the antenna, to that spirit of grace and make space for it. And then every Sunday on Clubhouse at 1900 UTC, myself and a few other ambassadors, Kiki, Sarani, Holly, thank you. We also co-host this Space for Grace, which is, yeah, just another kind of well to gather around. It's really precious, sweet kind of temple, very tender ceremony where we can commune in the spirit of fellowship and nourish and be nourished.
Do people sort of they just bring what's going on in their life right now, right, to the circle?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and we're gonna, it's open, it's fluid, it's just a kind of hearth space to for the heart to really open and unwind and stretch. It's not about, it's not a classroom for the head of dissecting and analyzing. It's more just this temple for deep inner sharing and for all of these different voices and expressions of grace to be witnessed. And every week is different, it's this cauldron where we, every week is sort of a surprise, and just surrendering and trusting all these expressions as this syntropic weave where we are, the reflections and the parallels and the synchronicities can be really, really astounding. And the depth of vulnerability is just inspiring. I mean, people come and they share these most delicate and tender truths and experiences, and the way that ripples out to kind of catalyze or encourage others to also release and liberate. Some of the biggest breakthroughs, I think, can happen just in that simplicity of being witnessed and having this safe and sacred space to see and be seen, or really to hear and be heard, and offer up our suffering into that collective cauldron in this really simple but ritual way. There is several weeks ago, I think, when Thich Nhat Hanh passed, for example, we were on Clubhouse, and it was like that day, 4 people from his Sangha showed up, and you could just feel his rainbow body emanating into that field of grace. And so like just one example of just the mystery and the magic of that serendipity that grace can inspire and evoke and activate. It's been, just such a gift to open into that miracle where these subtle streams can kind of dance with us and radiate through our voices, and just even in the silence, even in those who are listening, and really help to encourage that softness and that gentleness and this journey of remembrance where you can draw strength and inspiration from the depths. I think that's all.
That's beautiful, Amy. Thank you. And it's an amazing service that you are performing, not just you, but all of you who are holding that space and holding the space of the call on the 22nd of each month. And I just want people to know that it's very, even though this is very, very kind of lofty teachings in some respect, it's very gutsy. It's very gritty. It's about everyday stuff. You bring your everyday stuff. That's what the wound is. And so it's very real, and you will be received in your, whatever you bring. You can be bored, you can be cynical, you can be upset, you can be traumatized, you can be anything, and whatever you bring is held in this space and accepted and received. And that's what Amy was saying, it's so powerful. Just even if you don't wish to speak, even if you're holding that and you listen and you hear someone else share that, it can be a liberating catalyzing power for you. So yeah, the support that's gathered around these teachings is not to be kind of taken lightly. It's not to be overlooked. It's an incredible part of the Seven Seals. And I'd also say that, these teachings are being mirrored in other cultures. Like there's a Romanian group that meet with 200 or 300 people every month, and they do the seals together in the same way. There's also a Russian group right now, which, by the way, also contains some Ukrainians, and they're also holding the seals together. And so all around the world, these teachings are kind of finding their way because they offer solace in difficult times, and they really bring us together. So they're incredibly powerful. I cannot tell you, like, I know Amy and the rest of us, we can't tell you how powerful they are. So we really want you to kind of have an experience of it and dive in deep. It is something to dive into. It's not like, this isn't like dipping your little toe in. This is diving straight into the deep waters of the divine feminine, where you will be held, and you'll be prepared for your own death in a way, because that's what it's really all about. We're preparing for our own deaths, and we're letting go of all the layers that are in the way of that, so that we can be fully present in our lives, instead of afraid of that kind of that moment.
I feel like I want just tag a little piece on there, because when you opened, Richard, and I think many of us say this, is that sometimes people look at Gene Keys and they see we're so practical in our approach with a profile and an activation sequence and all the sequences, but those sequences are simply preparation for this. This is the core of the work. This is the realm. This is why we do all of the other things that we do repeatedly, so that the rainbow body can actually, there's enough opening in the cells for the seals to finally descend and open to us, so that these substances, because there are elixirs held within the rainbow body, there's an aroma and an elixir. So everything that we have been doing year after year, thank you, Mr. Rudd, has been for this very central core of the Corpus Christi. And this, to me, is the most practical. There is nothing more practical than the 7 sacred seals. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tanmayo. And I mean, I've known many people who use these teachings preparing for death, actually, who are before they die, and the invocations, because they're so beautiful to listen to and mysterious. I'm going to read you a bit of one, and while I'm reading it, because it's from the Seven Seals book, so you get a taste. You can do the mudra. This is from the 4th seal I've chosen. And each seal has a mudra. A mudra is a sort of sacred hand position. And these are ancient but powerful, and you can learn about them as you come into the course. But this mudra is connecting the 2 thumbs and forefingers in a figure of 8 like that. And then you close all your fingers together, tighten it up so that you've got a shape that looks a bit like that. And this is the mudra of breakthrough, the mudra of epiphany. So you can hold that while you're listening to this, and close your eyes and listen to these words. I'm just going to read the end of it, actually, because they're quite long, these invocations. Right. We rejoice in the coming of this extraordinary city of epiphany into the world. We, the fellowship, we, the synarchy, open our lives to receive a higher truth. We embrace a world with boundaries but no borders, with difference but no judgment, with change but no pain. We invoke the great city of epiphany. We plant it as a seed in our inner life. As we work to purify our consciousness through aligning to our purpose, through compassionate action in our relationships, and through service to the whole. So we open ourselves to the power of epiphany. May it fall on us when we least expect it. May it come when we need it the most. May it break open our hearts, heal our bodies, and expand our minds. May it jump from us to our neighbor. May it jump from our neighbor to the community. May it ripple out into the body of humanity, releasing hurt, letting the healing balm of tears fall from our eyes to cleanse our souls and open the way for a new world. We give great thanks for this secret teaching of the 7 sacred seals. We let it become a pattern woven into our lives, a new fabric that unravels within us, leading us forward with great clarity into the challenges that lie ahead. We acknowledge that we are heading into turbulent times of great change. We take a deep breath and nod our knowing as we gaze into this seal. Epiphany is initiation. It comes when it comes. And when it comes, it creates shock. It creates vast, unprecedented change. And it also comes for the benefit of all. We prepare ourselves for this future. We prepare humanity. We prepare those who are ready to listen for the shocks that will one day rock our world. We let the light of the inner worlds guide our every decision, and we trust absolutely in the grace of the teachings that come to prepare us to meet our glorious epiphany. We bring this invocation to a close with the blessing of the 5 elements. Each invocation closes with this beautiful blessing. So that's really what the seal gives you, a taste of the seals. Hopefully you've got a little bit of a flavor of it now, what I wanted to share with you at the end is we said we were going to give you this beautiful free gift, and we are leaving you with an amazing thing. Let me just share a little slide. Here we go. So this is there we go. That was the rainbow body. Flew by quickly. What we're going to share with you, and the link is already there on the bottom right here, is a beautiful little program called 7 Days of Grace. And it's inspired by this bigger course, the 7 Sacred Seals. And we know that for some people, it's a big step. You've got to, it's $220 for the course. So that's quite a lot to outlay for some of us. And so this gives us a taste that's completely free, that you can kind of get a sample. And the idea behind it is that you do this for 7 days, and every day of those 7 days, it's laid out. It's like a mini course, mini 7 seals, and we give you some of the resources that are in the course to do and practice each day for 7 days. And they're simple and really sweet and powerful. And the idea behind it is that within those 7 days, possibly, can't guarantee it, you will experience a moment of grace. That's what's the purpose behind it. And that moment of grace, whatever it is, it'll be a moment where the heavens open and where something occurs that seems of another world, that seems that there's an opening, there's an understanding, there's some kind of mini miracle that occurs. And you'll recognize it when it comes. It may not happen in the 7 days. It may happen after the 7 days. But the 7 days are kind of creating the conditions for grace, for a moment of grace. And actually, these moments, the more we create and invoke the spirit of grace, the more of those moments come into our lives. They're often moments of intense connection or connectivity where we see and feel the essence of grace moving behind the world, and we get a glimpse into that other heavenly dimension. We realize there's a reason for everything. We realize there's a perfection behind everything and every moment in the world. And there's a plan, in a way, unfolding, but we don't see it here all the time. We hardly ever see it. So grace is when that just suddenly everything opens up and you get a flash of it. And it can come in a very simple way, or it can come in a profound, kind of far-reaching way. But the idea behind the 7 days of grace as a little mini course is it gives you a taster into some of the practices, little prayers, little, the themes: creating quiescence, embracing forgiveness, finding flow, radiating love, softening into transformation. It's designed for anyone, even if you know nothing about the gene keys, nothing about the 7 seals. You don't have to know anything about any subtle bodies or rainbow bodies or anything like that. It's in a very easy to understand language, and you can do it. You're taught very simple things, and you listen and watch and get, just simple things that a lot of it's just receiving a prayer, receiving a meditation with music under it, just, enjoying taking that in. And so I hope that you will play with this. And you can start it whenever you like. It's designed to be started whenever you like, and then carry on for 7 days. Each day you just click, and it'll, you can also click a little button that will then send you an email each day for 7 days to remind you, today you're doing this, and it gives you a next, little piece of information. This is what you're going to do today. Here's your practice today. Welcome to day 3. Welcome to day 4. If you need that, or you just go in and access it, and it's all, again, there are lots of downloads and stuff, so you can take it all off and listen to it offline. You don't have to be online all the time. The commitment is on average 30 minutes a day. Some of that can be in the morning, some of it can be in the afternoon, some of it in the evening, depending on your life. If you miss a day, it's fine. You just miss that day and you just carry on with, so if you miss day 3, you just do day 3 on the next day. So it doesn't really matter. It's 7 stages of opening. And then I can guarantee you're probably going to want to go around and do it several times, because you'll create this softness around yourself. And we don't know the mystery of how grace comes or when it comes, because it's totally not in our hands. That's the beauty of grace. It's the one thing in the world, perhaps, that no one can predict or be in control of. There's no strategy for it, thank God. There's no kind of, set way. There's just create the conditions, and then sooner or later, it's going to come. So you'll find link to it there, and the link is also on the homepage of the Gene Keys website, or also on the events page of the Gene Keys website, where you'll find also those details about Amy's, amazing groups, the Clubhouse group. Clubhouse is a social audio only app. For those of you who don't know, it's really cool, very easy to connect into, and also the 22nd. So there'll be a beautiful one tomorrow, done by that group. So you can tune into that. You can find it all on the website, but I really hope that you enjoy 7 days of grace, give you a little taster of the seals, and perhaps then when you're ready, you'll go into the deep teaching and also explore, and become part of this movement that's growing around the world, that is really helping us understand and let go of our traumas and our sufferings, so that we can prepare ourselves for what's actually coming, and what grace shows us. It shows us what's really coming. It shows us the good news, shows us the light that's coming, it shows us the light behind the darkness. That's really what grace is all about. So enough for me. I feel like I've said enough, and I hope I hope it's been helpful for you here today, listening to us. I think we might, if there's any questions, we could do some.
Mm-hmm. One more thing I think to say about the course is we'd love you to share it, the 7 days of grace, with friends. It's a beautiful little link. You can send them for free, and just, anybody can pick up on it. So yeah, we'd love that. And Tanmayo, would you like to share something about the 7 days of grace?
I'm also feeling inspired to offer 7 days of grace room on Clubhouse. One of the joys about that for some people will be that it will be more in a time zone that works for this part of the world. because much as the space for grace is really, really beautiful, it's 5 a.m. over here, which is 3 a.m. in Perth and different parts of Asia. So I will have a chat to my wonderful co-hosts and let you know which day, but I think it would be really nice to also be holding that space on Clubhouse for 7 days of grace.
No, thank you for that, Tanmayo. That's very kind of you. So
question.
Do we have some questions?
Yeah, Amy mentioned there was one question, Richard, just about the delta actually in the 7 sacred seals, and just could you maybe just clarify the difference between the two, because there were a couple of questions I think about that.
Yeah, I mean it's another of the mystery school teachings called the Delta. I'm not going to talk to you about the Delta, having just shared all this, but it's also based on the number 7. So it is a direct correlation, has a direct correlation to these teachings. It's part of the same mystery school, so it kind of fits in, and that's a way, a dance that you do with 7 people over 7 weeks, using this, set of tools also connected to the 7 subtle bodies, but it's a so it goes alongside or within the 7 seals. It can go, the Delta can go alongside any other course, or particularly Gene Keys courses, obviously, because it has the same resonance, but it's a communal bonding program, and it's really awesome as well. But they're different, but they're kind of parallel in a way, or more than parallel. They're almost kind of echoes of each other, so they could be used together. You see, working with the 7 seals is a long-term project. It's a project, it's a thing you do yourself on your own in the privacy of your own heart. I mean, that's where all the work takes place. That's where all our inner work takes place. And so you can share and get support with others, as we've been sharing, but it's really an inner work, and you'll work with it in your own way. That's why all the resources are there. You'll find the ones that you really need, and they may change over time, because you'll try different ones, and then probably you'll find certain ones that you just really love and you do over and over and over again, or perhaps certain invocations that you feel you really need more to listen to more and more, or say more and more. And each, you can also find your own way, because people do their own ceremonies with them, using their own skills and experience and their own cultural trappings, so it's very, as Sally said earlier, it's very, or I think it was you, Tanmayo, said it really fits with any other, teaching from different cultures. But yeah, the Delta is also connected strongly to it.
Okay, there are a couple of questions. One I can answer really easily, and there's one for you, Richard. But so there's a question here about if you've already bought the course, so you may be an ambassador, or anybody that's bought the course in the last few years, do you buy the 7 sacred seals, the new one, at a reduced rate? Well, in fact, what you'll find if you go to your courses, you'll find it's just been upgraded. So you have the new course in your courses right now. So
yeah, we wouldn't want you
there's no need to repurchase it. It's just been refreshed and upgraded, so it's there for you. So yeah, enjoy that. And then there's another question, Richard, about, can you talk a little bit about the origin of the teachings and the differentiation between the Gene Keys and the 7 sacred seals?
Yeah, well, the Gene Keys is a whole set of wisdom teachings, so it has many layers and levels. And and the 7 seals is one of those layers and levels, and as I said, it's part of what we might call the mystery school teachings. So they are, it's connected to all the other teachings. And one of the things you'll realize if you come deeply into the Gene Keys and you start exploring them and you start working with them, and then you move to another, so you might be doing something with your profile. You might be understanding your profile through one of the sequences of what we call the golden path. And you might be exploring that, or you might be reading the Gene Keys book. You might be, at a certain point, you might say, well, I'm going to go and try this now. I'm going to go and try 7 Seals teachings, or I'm going to go and try the Delta. And what you'll see is you'll meet the same wisdom in a different form, but it's in the same kind of coding language. So it feels very familiar. So they all kind of fit together as part of a synthesis. And it's quite hard to explain that. They're fractal components of one teaching. It's like looking through a crystal lens, and you're looking through certain facets, and you look through this facet and it has a certain vibration. And then you look through another facet. It's the same crystal, but you're looking through another facet within it, and it has a different vibration, but it's still connected to the same revelation. So, that's, in a way, that's what the Gene Keys are all about. So it's not different. It's just a component part of it. And so in a way, when you're exploring Gene Keys, you really have to trust your intuition. In the beginning, I would suggest certain things. I would say, go and do the art of contemplation, understand that, get that grounded, do your activation sequence as part of the Golden Path, part 1 of the Golden Path. That's a great place to start. But if you're a very mystical person, you can put all that aside and just go, well, I'm jumping into the 7 Seals. You could start here. You start where you start, and you've got to trust where you start. It's quite interesting, actually, when people come to the Gene Keys teachings for the first time and see, well, where did they start? Where did you start? Did you start here? And did you start with the one on prosperity? Loads of people started recently on the Pearl, which is about creating prosperity. But you're going to see the same kind of coordinates and teachings reflected over and over and over again, but through different lenses. So they have the same feeling, they have the same poetry, but they kind of come from a different part of the matrix. So in a way, you're traveling through these, this multidimensional, rainbow body that is, interconnected, in a magical way. And where did they come from? The origin, they were there at the beginning of the universe. That's all I can tell you. And they'll be there at the end. The main thing is, like, when you read the book of Revelation, it talks about the seals being opened in a sequence, and we do them in the 7 Seals in a sequence that starts with the 7th seal. It's the opposite of in the Bible. You start with the 7th and you work your way down to the 1st, because the 1st is the densest material. The 1st is the wound of fear, the primary wound. And you've got to work your way down through the layers to get right down to the core wound of our humanity, which is the fear of death. Essentially, it's our forgetting. We've forgotten that we're spirit, and we may have flashes, but it's about coming right to that core fear and then opening that up and then remembering fully. And we open it up in layers, because we have to kind of heal layers of wounding or trauma that we have gathered over this life, or perhaps even in other lives, that we're still carrying these layers, this karmic baggage. And so we get to work at it in layers, layer by layer, with a little bit of guilt there, and then there's some rejection here, and then there's a bit of aggression here, and then there's these layers that come off, and then there's another layer underneath. And if you're working with the one teaching that really fits like perfectly with the 7 Seals is called the Venus sequence. So if you've worked or you're doing work with the Venus sequence, that's the one that takes you into the core of your individual wounding. And the 7 Seals can be a great kind of assistance when you're working with that stuff, because that stuff is really emotional. It's about trauma. It's about going into the deep trauma inside our body. And the 7 Seals provides us with kind of spiritual support at a high level that can make it really help us handle some of those difficult kind of states as we do this inner work. So it's deep, deep, deep work, this, and it has a deep, deep impact in our lives because it opens us up. Any more questions, anyone? I'm really happy to.
Yeah, looks, Tanmayo, was there something you wanted to share before I go to this question?
Well, no, I was looking at that question as well.
Okay, okay. Want to take
No,
Mm.
the question of through attending the space for grace, this should be your question, Amy, if you'd like to, seeing as it's your room. As something I did want to mention today, but please go from your perspective.
Oh, it's a common dialogue that we speak about. I'd love to hear Richard's insights on it. Why, just to speak a little bit about that, how that intensity of grace triggers and catalyzes the constriction, maybe, or the uncertainty.
Well, I guess when you're doing this kind of work, you reveal a layer, and then underneath that layer is a layer of something else, and so it's it's uncomfortable in the beginning, because you're having to be incredibly courageous to really look into your own nature. You're really asked to kind of look into your own soul, the mirror of your own soul, and feel what's there. Very few people have the courage to do that. I mean, it's like it's not a common thing to be drawn to a teaching like this. You got to already be ready. You probably already have to have done a lot of work, inner work, to just get here. Just but when you start looking, you start pulling off these veils, these 7 veils, and then you start to realize deeper layers of light underneath. But then you meet another kind of layer of darkness, and you're like, oh, is this just never ending? And it seems like that sometimes. And yet you get to a certain phase where it starts to become easier. And because you're releasing more light from inside your DNA. I mean, we're beings of light. That's what we are. We're made of light. And our future is to realize that, one day as a species. And so this work we're doing now inside our own souls is revealing our true nature as light. And this is what the rainbow body is all about. It's discovering that inner light. But the more light there is, the more you become aware of the darkness. So it can become quite intense at times, and you just need to. Sometimes I recommend people they just take a break. Just back off for a bit, do something normal, and don't get too sort of caught up in the intensity of it. Just breathe, go away, come back to it when you're ready. You'll be amazed that just that pause, those pauses and gentleness with our own self starts to actually dissipate some of those more stubborn patterns that we hold, because we hold stuff, right? We come into the world, we have addictions, we have complexes, we have inadequacy, we have as many kind of shadows as there are, and so it's about really identifying what's the one that's plaguing me right now, and how can I take care of myself so that lesson, so that I can transform that. It is very tender, Amy. You said, it's incredibly tender. It's working with the divine feminine. Grace shows you the way. I mean, when you embark upon this kind of work, grace shows you the way. No online course can show you that. No teacher can even show you that. Only grace itself, the mystery of it, embedded in the field of light of life, can actually show you step by step, can help you unravel, and will give you the strength and the will to carry on. But at times it's important to just back off a little bit, and because we can get very kind of into our shadow work and very intense and like, oh, I'm really doing my shadow work. And sometimes we just need to just go, I can take a break, I can take a rest, I can come back when I feel ready again. And so those moments are really important because they give us that sense of perspective. I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but it hopefully helpful in life generally as well.
There was one simple question here asking, will the 7 Sacred Seals be a live course? And actually it's a self-study course, so you can start this course at any time. But, you know, as Amy mentioned, there is the group that meets once a month. So that's the opportunity to go to meet with others that are, you know, participating in the course and share. So hopefully that answers that question for whoever asked it earlier.
Yeah, it's always live. There's a, you know, there's a beauty to doing a kind of live retreat. Like, you know, we've been doing a lot of live retreats with Gene Keys, but there's also, you know, difficulties with that, because once you've started, then you're in it, and then someone arrives 5 minutes later and they've missed the start. And so we like the 7 Seals just to be a permanently live course, but with the support also permanently there in a rhythm. And that means that you've got people that have been doing it for 7 days and people who've been doing it for 7 years, like Amy, you know, and you really get that support from those people who've been in it a long time, and they really know how to hold the space. You know, it's beautiful. And when you go in there, you just feel that grace just being emanated at you. So, yeah. Are there correspondences between seals and awakening Kundalini? You can answer that if you want, Tanmayo or Amy.
I would say that the best thing to do when you enter or listen to any of the invocations of the seals is listen and notice if you're looking for something. Grace is not looking for something. You know, the whole journey here, you know, like the question before that Richard answered so eloquently, you know, even when in my experience, when Richard introduced Venus for the first time, I felt the seed of the mystery. It was totally clear. And I watched the unfolding, you know, the first workshop we did together in the States in 2010 or 11, whenever it was the Corpus Christi. This has always been that behind the scenes in some way, but very present and available for those of us who had already stepped through those gates. But the core of that transmission of the Corpus Christi is all the way through every aspect of the Gene Keys. But for evolution and involution, if you want, or for this deep transcendent change that we're all going through, I would say look to the 6th seal for holy truth, because what you will find there is a deep shattering of everything that you think about in order to make space for the epiphany, for the illumination, for the sanctity, for the blessedness. And there is a place, and I'm going to make a wee statement, which I generally hate, but there is a place in my experience of all humans where we want to hold on to the anchor that, or the boat that's tied up, and we also want to cross the river. Well, you cannot do both. It needs your courage. You have to want this like you want breath, because to untie the boat is the only way that you can cross the river. And once you cross the river, you don't need the boat. But in the beginning, we all need the boat. So allow yourself to just bathe in the gentleness. My experience, like Amy, I'm sure, it takes a long time. It just percolates and percolates, but it will break you down and break you open to the true nature of who you really are.
Beautiful, Tanmayo. Yeah. If you would like your awakening to take place through softness, this is the course and the program for you. If you want some violent, fast, crazy awakening process, this isn't the thing for you necessarily. Although, of course, you never know what grace will do. But the method is softness and patience. It's the feminine method. And that's what is so powerful about it. I've always felt myself that awakening is really, I've said this somewhere, it's a series of softenings, you know, and so we open more to that softness inside us. And it can create, by the way, the opposite, it can create really firm boundaries and strength and vulnerability. But that softness actually makes us more powerful, you know, because we open. And the more open you become, the less you need to defend yourself from anything, you know, and then you really are a truly, you know, infinite, immortal being. So, yeah.
And this idea too of awakening isn't out there in the future thing we have to catch up with, you know, this, just want to reemphasize that patience is the sister of grace. And it's like the only lasting progress is that gradual progress. And so think of these 7 seals as an opportunity to really attune to your own rhythm. And like, that's why it's such an individual, deep, introspective journey, because we're all on different timelines. And so just really give yourself permission to go slow and steady and gently, and then use these communion opportunities to really anchor that in. But there's no course, you know, there's no pace that you have to match. It's all just you discovering patience and grace and their interdependence.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a question here about the 7 rays and Alice Bailey and other teachers. And you can use whatever other teaching you're drawn to. All I know is that this one is very, very simple. So it doesn't require a lot of deep esoteric knowledge or study. There is that there, but it's not really for your study. It's for your inspiration. It's to give you a bit of a grounding. And, you know, so that you kind of have you understand some of the history of this teaching, of this transmission, and where it comes from and how it connects to other teachings. But other than that, it's all really about doing the practices. And, you know, there's a question here. I don't know if you'd like to answer that one, Sally. That's also about which practice shall I choose? And I'm confused about which, you know, practice. You know, there's so many there. Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's the invocation itself, which takes some, if you like, digesting and integrating into your life, or into my life, certainly. But then as time moves on, what I found useful was to, you know, to have a selection of other blessings or meditations or practices to just bring into my day-to-day life. So if I'm not working with the invocation specifically, I, you know, kind of create my own practice through selecting some of those, and I use different ones at different times, and so I move through them. So that was really the purpose of providing that section, so that it was more of a sort of a spiritual deepening, just selection for you to use. That's what I would say.
You might also enjoy the 7 days of grace, because that gives you a very structured, you know, approach, and gives you the idea. And also, of course, you can use your own practices from other places, you know. And I you know, this is not, I really encourage that. Like, this is not just a mutually exclusive thing. There are so many wonderful practices out there, and you can draw from all of those. So yeah, feel free to weave in your own you know, favorite things into the 7 seals.
I'd like to add one thing here also. Alice Bailey was one of my entrance points into the world when I was, I don't know, in my late teens or early 20s. something like that. And I've attended lots of different things in my life, mystery schools and book clubs that would study books like White Magic or books from Steiner. And what I discovered a great deal of the time was that a lot of the time it became an intellectual pursuit. And of course, that is not the truth for everybody. Please hear that from me too. But I started to notice at times that we were talking about it rather than immersing ourselves in it, because it took so much courage and inner confrontation to immerse myself in it, to really connect intimately with a truth of ancestral wounding, of my own defenses and triggers and rages, to publicly announce that in a book club. You know, that obviously wasn't the done thing. Let's keep it all very calm and on the surface, which is great, but I'm here for actualization. I'm not here for happy la-la. So for me, this is a real opportunity to allow a true experience of the divine, a true experience of what's happening in your causal body today, or what happened that you could never have imagined, what translucent light fed you this morning in a way that you've never experienced before. You know, what is this moment's direct experience of life? What is the wound of it, the pain of it? And the grace, sometimes for many people, and this may or may not be politically correct, but you've got me. The religion has never been the problem, but the politics of religion has been a problem. And for many of us, and I am absolutely one of them, I had to dig deep to be able to connect with Saint Peter. I had to go into the allegory. I had to go much, much deeper to what is truly here, because I bumped up against Catholicism and the Church of England and all of those things that are painful to my ancestral culture. For me, if you are a child that has a skin color like this, you were born somewhere in an ancestry that was traumatized, that you dare know the divine personally, that you dare be filled with life in such a way that herbs and trees and oceans and spirit talk to you. So if you are in that generational stream, if you have a child that is intuitive or artistic or wants to be a herbalist, you are going to shut that child down, because in your living memory, the trauma that could then ensue is too great to encounter. So sometimes when we say grace or the 7 sacred seals, what charges to the forefront is the rage of that stolen times that were taken away through the politics of religion. So if that's not your truth, please know this. I'm only speaking to my truth and the truth of many others. So sometimes that rage that you can't pinpoint is because something so deeply natural to you was taken away and created that separation and annihilation and tyranny and hiding from the real truth of life, which is heartful, loving, tender, and gracious and strong. Indomitable spirit, the only truth.
Well, thank you, Tanmayo. I love your sermons. Love them. If you want to, would you finish us with a prayer, or Amy or Tanmayo, one of you, or Sally?
Tanmayo, I think you have one lined up, don't you?
I think we better have the ladies' prayer after.
I think so after that. Thank you.
This is a prayer, by the way, that you will get in the 7 days of grace. And we kind of invite you to do this each morning.
Thing is, can't you read it now? The Lady's Prayer. Our Lady, who lives at the heart of all form, hallowed be thy name. May the queendom come. May thy will be done. That heaven may come to earth. Please allow me this day to drink from your sacred silver spring, and forgive me my forgetting. As I learn through grace to return all non-love with love. And take me by the hand and lead me. Step by step into the patient valley of your heart. For yours is the earth. My body and my life. Forever and ever. Amen. And these are tears of grace.
Bless you, Tanmayo, and bless you all. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Amy, Sally. Beautiful feminine beings. And do enjoy the 7 days of grace. Remember, you can access it right away. Start today or start tomorrow. And it's on the homepage of genekeys.com website. It's on the events page where you can also find access to the amazing Amy's Sacred Seals group, where we all drop in from time to time as well. There'll be a call tomorrow, right, Amy? My tomorrow, your.
Yeah, there's a call tomorrow at 2200 UTC. So on the 22nd of every month at 2200 UTC, easy to remember. And also just really quickly, so on Clubhouse, which is on Sundays, now at 19 UTC, for the next 7 weeks, we're just going to bring a little more intentionality to that space as well. And we're going to move through each of the 7 rays in order. So starting this week with luminescence, and it'll just maybe be an opportunity to just hear and tune in to a little more of the texture and the quality of these rays and their various correspondences.
Beautiful. So there you have it. Lots of things to explore. Please dive in and join our community, exploring the 7 seals. Enjoy the 7 days of grace. And as Sally said, please share it wide, because you can give it to absolutely anyone, and absolutely anyone could get a moment of grace from it. You know, I mean, like, give it to like someone really stuck and say, do this for 7 days. And I want to know what your moment of grace is like. And we're collecting them, by the way. We're going to be collecting them on social media and stuff. People's like, what was your moment like? What was your, and it may be more than a moment, but, and of course we don't know when it'll come, but for sure it'll come. So blessings to you all. And thank you for bearing with us and listening to us all here today. Yeah.
Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it all together.
Yeah. Thank you, Elijah, behind the scenes.
And I need to add one thing, because when I was saying what I was saying about the trauma of the politics of religion and the fact that it is my heritage and for many, but I feel it is a heritage all over the planet where lots of old traditions were replaced by certain politics of religion. So it doesn't matter what your skin color is, you may also have been traumatized by this. So let us all come together wherever we're from and whatever colors and rainbow bodies, that we may join this dance of the seven sacred seals.
Amen. And thank you all for being here and staying with us. And, you know, come and see us in Gene Keys and on our website, on Clubhouse, and various things that are always going on in our community. Love to you all, and have a great day, morning, evening, wherever you are.